more than a few minutes, because I think the important thing is for you to ask questions and raise things with me that you want to raise. But just so you know a bit about my background, I have to confess to you that my first love in soccer has always been my hometown team, which is Lincoln City, where I come from. That's right, he's back there now, he's injured at the moment. That's right. I went to Sinsel Bank for the first time about 1942, and in those days Lincoln had quite a good team because of all the RAF stations around, all the guest players. Not quite as dramatic as Aldershot, but quite a good team in those days. And we moved down to Surrey in 1944, and in those days I used to go to Brentford because that was the nearest place I could get to from Surrey. And I was just saying to our colleague here, the first time I remember seeing Charlton was in, I think, the 6th round of the Cup, 1945-46. And in those days, for no reason I can't remember, the Cup was 2 legs for that season. And I think that Charlton beat Brentford 6-3 at the Valley, and it was 3-1 at Griffin Park, as I remember. That was the first time. That was the first time I remember seeing. You see, my childhood memories are accurate. But that's the first time I remember seeing Charlton. And then I started going fairly regularly about 1947. Remember the first time I went to the Valley? It was was it? Good.
3-1.
The first game I remember, I'm pretty sure it was Len Shackleton's debut. He'd just been the record transfer fee, 10,000 and something or other, or 11,000 and something or other.
What year was that?
47. And I think it was
when he sat on the ball, wasn't it? The corner flag.
I think it was his debut. That's the first time I remember being at the Valley. And then I didn't actually go all that regularly as I started working and all that sort of thing. Came back very regularly in the mid-1960s because Dick Neave, the late Councillor Dick Neave, was doing a sort of record request operation and match announcements and so on. And he said, look, we need to do this in a bit more professional way. Would you like to come and help me? So I remember we went up to Coventry, and Jimmy Hill showed us how the Sky Blues were doing all this sort of stuff at Coventry. And we tried to do something similar at the Valley. It was bloody difficult because if you remember, you couldn't actually see the pitch from the little sort of cubbyhole underneath the stand where we did all the announcements from. And one of us just had to sort of dash out and see what was going on and rush back and tell the other. So I remember I did that record request thing, helping Dick, from 1966 until after I got elected to Parliament in 1974, and it was very difficult then to find the time to keep on going regularly, so I became a much less frequent attender at the Valley. And I have to say to you that I have never been to Selhurst Park since the club went to Selhurst Park, and I have a very simple view, I'm afraid. It's probably romanticism on my part, but for me there's only one place for Charlton, and that is the Valley. And it in my view, is a natural ground. The club's probably made it difficult over the years by selling off the chunks that they have sold off for housing development, but it is a natural spot for a football club. I have to be a bit careful about the sort of politics of the situation, because the Valley, of course, is not in my constituency, it's in Greenwich. And I'm also not, as you know, the same political party as runs the council. And although I've had talks with the club from time to time, I've always said to them, look, if I come out too publicly in support of Charlton, that's not going to make life any easier for you in your negotiations with the council, because the council doesn't actually love me, and the last thing I want to do is to make life difficult. So we've reached what I think is a very sad situation at the moment. It seems quite obvious to me that there is no way in which Charlton can come back to the Valley unless it can get permission for a substantial chunk of commercial development. I remember in my days, going back 10 years or more, that the club's income from the gates in those days wasn't covering the wage bill, and I can't believe it's coming anywhere near covering the wage bill now. And the only way you make up, well, I'm sure it is, the only way you make up that gap is by generating commercial income. And I don't think Langs, who I think are out about £2 million at the moment on the deal, will go on in doing any more in terms of making money available. So the club's got to have some commercial development on the site which produces the income to keep the football club going. I know that, you know that, and I would have thought, well, I was just going to say, I'd have thought the council would understand that too, because it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a genius to understand that. The argument, it seems to me, is about how much commercial development, and it may be the council is right, there's too much. But when I look at them now saying, well, it's zoned as metropolitan open space, well, you wonder why on earth they wanted the club to come back if they were going to make this open space and not agree to commercial development on the site. And when they talk about the Blackwall Peninsula, I mean, they don't own any land there or anywhere else come to that. And the odd conversation I've had with British United developers who are doing the Blackwall Peninsula development, I'm afraid they don't want a football club in the scheme. They want to build lots of yuppie housing and other exciting and profitable things. They don't want a football club in the middle of it. So I don't think there's very much prospect there. I hope that common sense will prevail. I mean, I don't quite know where these private discussions between the club and the council have got to, because as I say, I'm not involved in it. But I hope that some common sense is going to prevail, because having lost one football club this century from the borough, it would seem to me absolutely ridiculous to lose a second football club. And I don't want to be pessimistic, but looking at the club's current situation, if they don't find a permanent home soon, then it seems to me that the pressures of economics and finance and so on must put a great big question mark over its future. I don't believe it will be able to go on indefinitely without a base of its own which is generating the sort of income that it needs.
But I suppose they don't mind the same office being built down in the town centre.
Well, I mean, if you look at the office blocks we've built around the town centre, if you look at some of the blocks of flats we've got in my constituency, 24-storey blocks of flats, they aren't things of beauty. The council's put those up itself, so I can't really see that there's a major problem. There may be a difficulty about traffic and access and all the rest of it, I accept that, but I mean, we've got to find some way round that, because after all, if Charlton came back tomorrow, you'd have that problem. And they can come back tomorrow if they wanted to, because they've got, users' rights to use it as a football ground. So that's a problem which the council can't avoid anyway. So anyway, that's how I see things. I think that there ought to be some reasonable common sense on both sides, which enables the club to come back, because if it doesn't, then I think the future of the club must be extremely doubtful. I don't believe it can go on indefinitely without a permanent home which generates the sort of base and foundation that it needs. That's the way I see things, Andy. That sense, well, if I stop there and let you throw at me anything you want to have a go at me about while I'm here.
This business about the town centre, we had a fellow from the council, not a council.
Or Fritz Henning, I expect you
Henning.
yeah.
And he said that the council told Charlton that they have no objection to building the same office block in the town centre.
Well, how can you build the same office block in the town centre?
This is what they said.
Because he said the centre of Woolwich is going dead and they want to regenerate. But instead of it's going dead, we're letting other things like as to be built on here.
Well, if you look at the, I mean, this is going off a bit off what we're here for, but if you look at Bexley Heath Town Centre, for example, and look at all the schemes we've had for modernising Woolwich Town Centre over the years, not one of them has ever been done. And as a result, Woolwich has gone way down as a shopping centre. But, I mean, it doesn't really help Charlton to say, you can build the office block somewhere else, does it? No, it's like asking a chap for directions. He says, well, don't start from here.
I mean, one of the things which seems to come to me time and time again is that the council have been at pains to try and explain that the issue has been purely a planning matter. Yet, I can't help but feel that the emotive issues and the planning issues have got somewhat confused, and all the way down the line. Greenwich Council certainly doesn't have a very good reputation when it comes to sport in the borough, for example. 5 swimming pools were closed to open the Waterfront Leisure Centre, which is now standing to lose something like £3 million.
Absolute white elephant.
Whereas the renovation work on Greenwich Baths cost a fraction of the cost. All the other baths in the borough could have been renovated for a fraction of the cost of the building of the Waterfront Centre. The ban on professional boxing, the refusal of planning permission for the Greenwich Borough football team to build a modest stand to enable them to play in a higher division. There's a catalogue of policies or decisions that seem to have gone against sport within the borough.
Well, I think that's true, and what makes me angry, and it's not just Greenwich, to be fair, it's nationally as well. Until we had John Major's 2.5% off the pool bettings levy in order to put it back in for ground improvements. That was the first time we've seen any government that I can recall understand that government gets a lot of money out of football. And what makes me angry, and I'm a fully paid up card-carrying Philistine, I have to tell you, what makes me angry is that my taxpayers' money, your taxpayers' money, our rates, goes into the arts, goes into theatres, operas, art galleries, all these sort of things. Now, I don't object to that, but that's, in a sense, a minority interest. The number of people who actually enjoy that is very small when you think of the number of people who enjoy... Well, I don't have any foreigners, but when you think of the numbers involved in all that, opera and ballet and all the rest of it, which is all subsidised out of public funds, and how many people enjoy professional football, which isn't subsidised at all. In fact, the reverse, it coughs up large sums of money, which go into these other directions. That seems to me unfair. Just picking up your point about the council's attitude, way back in 1971, when I was leader of the council, we put together a scheme. There's a guy called Rodney Stone, I think you remember him, who was the general manager then, a strange man. But we put together a scheme. He brought a camel once to the ground, if I remember. We put together a scheme under which Charlton would have built at the Valley a sports centre, which would have been let to the council. We would have paid £25,000 a year to the club for the use of that sports centre so that local youngsters in the area could use it as well. And I thought that was a great idea, because the kids would have been training in the same place as the professionals, real community involvement, the sort of thing that Millwall's now doing very successfully. And the Labour group meeting eventually threw it out. And they threw it out because they said, this is a commercial undertaking, Charlton Athletic, and why on earth are you doing a deal with a commercial firm? Why are we putting ratepayers' money into a commercial firm? And I said, well, you're putting it into Greenwich Theatre. But no, I lost the vote, and there's been, as you say, that sort of element which doesn't understand, or doesn't seem to want to understand, that the whole community gains from a successful football club. I mean, if Charlton were to go, what else have we got left?
But I brought this up to this fella called Fritz. I've always been a bit iffy about that. But I said to him, why can't Greenwich see the possibilities there of building a large sports complex that everybody can use, because people will go to it, because especially the kids, if they think anything called Charlton Athletic, Charlton Athletic fanatics, they'll go to it, even if they only play tiddlywinks on a table, but they beat the Charlton's ground. And I could, why can't the council pick up on a thing like that?
Well, they can't now because they haven't got the money, and they can't because they've spent it, as Andy was saying, in a sense in the wrong place. They've spent large sums of money on that sports centre in Woolwich, which is what is called a sale and lease back arrangement. They haven't got the money to build the wretched place, so they said to a developer, you build it for us, and then we'll rent it back from you. And that's what they're doing with that Riverside sports complex. And it costs, I think, something like £2 million a year, or something ridiculous like that, which they're committed to for as far ahead as you can see.
I came through Deptford the other day, just because I happened to be around that area, and Lewisham are doing exactly the same on the corner of Giffey Street and Deptford Church Street. They're building a great big complex.
And they're closing little swimming pools like Lorry Grove, which is...
When I worked for them, they're Brassic Bin.
But I reckon Lewisham's relationship with Millwall is a model. I mean, it has been very good. I think they've done a lot to change the image of Millwall Football Club in the last few years.
Very lucky it's how they've existed. That was the saviour. I've been up there 2 or 3 days, but I would think that a car park wants building. Every road you go in is crap full of cars. So if you've got a football match on, Charlton play Manchester United or something, they have a car.
But I mean, that you're absolutely right, and that's a sign of changed times, isn't it? We all used to go to the Valley on buses and trams and trains and whatnot. We've now all got cars, so we want to drive the car.
The trouble is, all the people living in the area have also got
That's
cars.
right. Yeah, that's right.
What I see.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Albert, they keep on, the Greenwich Council keep emphasising this parking business. If you go down to Woolwich on a Saturday and try and buy something, you've got to park in Plumstead to get into Woolwich half the time. And everything happens in Eltham, it happens at
Yeah, all over.
Anywhere you like to
Yeah,
mention.
the problems there everywhere.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it would help the football clubs if they could go, there's a bit of land that's stolen.
Plenty of land.
But in Goodison Park, it was split on the houses across the road from there.
Right.
Right. Obviously, they get far more cars and shopping.
Well,
So maybe they can't all there.
But most league grounds are in residential areas, aren't they? Most of the big. Yeah. I mean,
Not a new problem.
the problem is that the club went. And the fact that the club went changed the situation because people then got used to it not being there. And, you know, some of them are bothered about it coming back. I understand that. And there's also people who've moved in since the club went.
Well, there was a woman on that programme last night, an elderly woman, not the youngest, the elderly. She said he's been able to see all the people coming and going on a Saturday, and that's how it used to be when I was a youngster. They would stand at the door watching everybody go.
That's right.
Everybody coming back.
How did they get on? Yeah.
It was part of their life.
Yeah.
No record of any troubles in those days at all.
Well, but that's general, isn't it? I mean, I was as a child in crowds of 50,000 with never any problem at all. And if there was any difficulty about overcrowding, they picked you up as a kid and down you went over the heads down the front, out of trouble.
Up Victoria Way, where the Dole was a big factory, where they had these and Johnson Phillips, which is Reminiscence Group, will be closing down October, so end of the line.
Well, with goodwill, I think you could solve that problem.
Yeah, I think it's solvable. I mean, there is the ability to solve the parking problem, and I think it's an issue that's come back time and time and time again, either from the council or from the local residents who've been opposing the return to the valley. But really, I can't see the problem. I mean, there are plenty of open spaces available north of the lower road, near the river. As Harry said, there's also Woolwich Common, Charlton Park. I mean, there's plenty of open space which could be utilised. It deflects from the main issue.
I mean, one of the problems seems to be the police saying to local residents, well, if the club comes back, we'll have a total ban on parking in all the streets around, 11 o'clock in the morning. And people obviously thinking, well, God, I can't leave my car outside my house. That's
all palace now, so...
Well, they do every Saturday, don't they?
We go over there, we don't get any problems all that much.
Well, and they've got it every Saturday, because, I mean, you haven't got sort of home and away, have you? Somebody's home all the time.
Nobody seems to be objecting to it. I suppose individuals do, but it's not a natural problem.
I mean, possibly the worst thing that happened as far as was at the end of last season, the Arsenal match, when they completely sealed off all the streets around Highgate, overkill of Manchester. And people look at that and but that was going too far. Can we have a bit of order?
Come along, girl.
Well, in 1920, when Charlton came to the valley, before that, no one heard of Charlton Village. They used to say, well, when Charlton had a cup run in 1920-21, they said, well, where is this Charlton Village? Well, why can't we open the back again so people can hear it again?
Well, I tell you, when we were trying to think of a name for the borough, you know, when we merged Woolwich and Greenwich, and we couldn't agree between ourselves on a name. You know, Woolwich wanted Woolwich and Greenwich wanted Greenwich, and the great rows were going on. I remember Jock Offord, who was a councillor, head of Kidbrooke Park School and a great Charlton supporter, said we ought to call it the Royal Borough of Charlton. And the football club could be called Charlton Royale.
They wouldn't have the Royal Park, would they?
They wouldn't have that.
One
thing about it, Mr. Cartwright, that it was better when it was a Woolwich Borough than it's been Greenwich Borough.
Well, I think that. I mean, a lot of people in Greenwich who think the same way. They were better off on their own.
And Woolwich Borough, it was good.
I think anything that gets too big is difficult. It gets out of control.
Could we, looking again at the reasons for Greenwich Council refusing Charlton Athletics' return, another thing which I certainly thought about, is that with the borough elections coming up, they thought that possibly by allowing Charlton to return too soon would be a vote loser in the borough elections. But is it going to work against them? What's your considered opinion? Do you think the Valley Party will have any kind of impact?
I don't know what impact the Valley Party will have. I mean, they have a perfect right to run candidates, and I hope they do well. What worries me is that they're going to fight everything all over the entire borough. There are a lot of places where there aren't that many Charlton supporters stick on the ground. And when people are bothered about the big issues like the poll tax and all that, I'm not sure how many people will decide they're going to vote for what is a single issue party, a party which is simply saying all we're concerned about is getting Charlton back to the Valley. As I said, they have a perfect right to do it. I think in a democracy anybody's got a right to put their point of view and put it to the people and see how it goes. I just don't know what the impact is going to be. That's the honest answer. Any more than I know what the impact is going to be in relation to the ruling group on the council. I suspect that the big national political issues will have more impact on the result on May the 3rd than this one. This one's going to get a lot of national publicity. I mean, I think from the point of view of attracting national attention for the issue of Charlton and the Valley Party has done a very good job because it's so unusual. The idea of a party being established for one thing and fighting right across the board is going to get a lot of coverage, and that's probably a good thing.
What do you think? Well, it was on
We did last night.
It was indeed.
It was on national radio this morning.
Yep.
But it was only on, I keep calling it South East, Newsroom South East last night. When it would have been better off in the main news.
Yeah. Well, I certainly picked it up a couple of times last night, different programmes. And as you say, on the sports news this morning on Radio 2.
And the fellow that was talking about it this morning lives near Selhurst Park. And he's all for Charlton going back to the Valley so that they can have a week off.
Is that Richard Hunt?
I don't know who it was.
No, it was the ordinary sports guy in the Jameson programme.
Jameson programme, he has to have somebody to read the weather, somebody to read the sport because he gets tongue-tied. But the thing is that this fellow lives near Selhurst Park, and he says we don't get a Saturday off at all.
That's true.
And that's already been spoken about just a moment ago. His comments were, we never get a Saturday off from traffic.
Any ground in London is no bigger than Charlton ground, ever was. Because the gates they had at Charlton was way above your Arsenal, your Chelsea, the Tottenham, and there was nothing as regards gates for Charlton. 1938 against Aston Villa, way over 70,000.
It was the biggest ground in the league.
It was the biggest ground.
Yes, before the ground was really developed.
And it was a pity then that they didn't start doing something which was to improve, but I blame that on the Glicksteins.
I agree with you.
I, sitting here,
Well, that's already out. Did you make
they
a
paid
profit?
£67,000 for that place. And at the end of the war, after that cup final, let's have the 67,000 back. Now you're on your own. Right. Likes of Charlie and a few more. He come for the tenner. He gets sold to Derby County. I hope it went his way. We played those 3 games in the cup, and we had over 200,000 people for one round of the cup, which is a record even up to today. That is. And the money I got for playing in the 3 is £2. The draw here, the draw at Villa Park, 68,000 there, and Glicksteins tossed up with their chairman of Aston Villa. It was going to be Wolverhampton if they won the toss, Highbury if Glickstein. Glickstein won the toss, over 60,000
That's
at
right.
Highbury.
All of us brothers. Yeah.
We won it 1-0, but before that, this young chap here, I don't know his name, I've seen him. He's been in front of me a lot of times. He nicked in a couple of goals in the first 20 minutes, and we're winning 2-0. We was home and dry. Half time 2-0. We go at 20 minutes from the end. I'm looking at the clock, the third turner, corner flag this ball over. Still winning 2-0. And Sam had one of his diabolical. There's the corner flag where that gentleman's sitting there, and the fellow picks up a ball and kicks him from where he is about 2 yards, and that ball has got to go 38 to 39 yards. There's the post. And Frankie Pussy standing here.
Frankie Pussy is Mr.
He goes like that. Listen, all the way.
Bless him. Yeah. One of
God, blimey, Charles.
I used to not bet that. We ended some a week ago.
Albert,
Still there?
this might be new to you, as this is repetition.
This is all new.
Charlton Ground, as it is positioned, had all the facilities of, in one of the most populated areas in London, in southeast London, that all the trains coming within 110 yards of the ground. You had the trams coming up left and right. You had buses going as well. Top buses, all they had to do was walk down Church Lane, and you had everything in your face.
It was a natural amphitheatre.
Yeah, it was. But I blame the Glicksters.
Well, I often used to
no idea of what was wanted. And Jimmy C, when it suited him, because he looked after himself. He didn't look after the players, but he looked after himself. And I blame solely the Glicksters.
But I often wondered where the money went in those glory days, because it didn't go on ground improvements, it didn't go on transfer fees to any extent, did it? They didn't buy a lot of players.
Well, I went in 34, and that furthest place over there where the laundry is at the top was for about 25 steps up, sleepers.
Yeah, that's right.
That is, all right?
Yeah.
And all the halfway back at the top was all sand, and the kids used to slide down there while we was training the kids down the hill from the allotments at the top.
Yeah, that's right.
There was plenty of room there, and there was only that one stand. That was Humphreys built that stand, and they put two directors, Mr. Clark and Mr. Law. I think it was Clark. They had them on the board, and when I came here, there was Albert Stanley Glickstein and those two. Those two was there hoping to get paid for the stand.
Yeah.
And that was the 4 directors. No trouble at all. With all them gates. And really, they didn't do it for goodness sake. They wanted Poland.
After Albert and Stanley gone, of course, Michael owned it lock, stock and barrel.
Yeah, but I mean, I remember Michael Lisbeth.
Yeah.
I remember the little kid and his brother at that day. In 1943, when I was injured, I had to go down there training. Used to give me 1 and 6 a day. I had to come down from Charing Cross. So I was stationed in Finsbury Circus. I fought up there in the army. During war. I fought at Woolwich 15 months.
You saw a lot of action then.
And then in those days, we always had a good crowd. But it was a natural place. You could have built the world around the shop. They forgot to do it.
Tell me, what do you think? What do you think about all-seater stadium? I mean, do you think this is all-seater stadium? I'm going to leave with you a copy of the Taylor report. It costs £10.50. You might as well have one for bucksheet. And what do you think about all-seater stadium?
Well, we all prefer to stand, I think.
Not all of it.
Well, as I'm getting older, as I'm getting older,
Let's have one person speaking at a time.
Legislation over this?
Well,
It's going to be compulsory.
yes, it is going to be compulsory. They've got a timetable all laid down.
Will Revell.
Well, I think when the money's going to be available, I mean, there's all sorts of estimates being made about the cost of it. Trouble is that a lot of the estimates, I think, are too low, because they simply looked at what it would cost to turn it into an all-seater stadium. They haven't worried about covering it. You ain't going to sit on a seat, are you? If you've not got any cover over you.
Not practical, is it?
I don't think so. That adds to the cost.
And if there's any trouble out there, there'll be a lot of people in there, that don't want trouble.
Well, the argument
And
is
I
that
think
you're less likely to
as
get...
many injuries as what there were with
Well,
fire or anything else.
the argument is you're less likely to get trouble if they're all sitting down. That's the argument.
Some can stand up though.
Well, they can, yeah, they can.
They do. And they will.
Like a break the chair and everything.
One person speaking at a time, please.
You've only got a few hooligans in there, just a dozen or so, and they can incite the hell of a lot of people.
Well, I remember, they used to have cushions on stand seats.
Yeah,
So
well,
you got trouble there through the cushion.
I think they'll have just as much trouble.
See,
I think the
fair amount
will rue the day when she is.
Well, we managed to stop this nonsense of the identity card scheme. That is now dead and gone, thank goodness. And no thanks to Colin Moynihan, who went along with it all the way. I mean,
He thought it was a boat place.
well, he did. In fairness to Colin Moynihan, he did say it wouldn't matter to him because he'd go underneath the turnstile. But when the supporters club got the petition against the identity card scheme, the club wouldn't let me actually accept the petition. We had to stand outside the valley, and they gave it me outside, standing on the derelict site, because the club didn't want to upset Colin Moynihan by letting me have the petition on the ground. Well, I gather he's quite close. But Charlton was about the only one of the major league clubs that wasn't involved in that campaign against the identity card scheme. But thank goodness that is now over. It's finished. That will not come back. But we have got a lot of changes coming, and this is, as you say, going to be imposed on football. There's going to be a time scale, obviously working through the first and second divisions and down to the third and fourth, perhaps by the end of the century. But I mean, if there isn't money, the third and fourth division clubs are finished. No
Well, it's
way.
not only football league clubs, it's
No, it's round into the conference.
rugby clubs
Now,
as
this is
well.
where Charlton could have built a new stadium.
Well, yeah.
It's the only one that really could have done so.
Well, from scratch, that would have been absolutely as Taylor lays it down.
So there should have been no...
All right. What I can't understand about all these political things that they push through, I mean, you just mentioned the fact that it was proved wrong with the other thing. Now, don't they ever, in Parliament, listen to what people want? I mean, do they ever come back and say, well, look, let's have a sort of proper referendum, go back to our constituents and ask them what they want? Because most people probably won't want them to. The problem's not in the ground. They have a seat to ground, you're still going to stop them fighting outside the tube station.
Absolutely.
So why is it that these so-called intelligent people, i.e. the parliamentary people, don't listen to people like us? I mean, we know more about Charlton Football Club, what happens in the football club, the market, that's what not you, because you're a football supporter. Why don't they listen?
Well, the trouble is that there's been a lot of public anxiety and unhappiness about football hooliganism, with the inverted commas around it, which covers a multitude of things. And most members of the public, I don't think, have really understood that, as you say, inside grounds, the situation is now pretty well under control. I think football was slow to handle it, but bringing in closed-circuit television and all the rest of it means that inside grounds now you've got very little real serious problem. It's outside the grounds the difficulties occur. Now, Margaret Thatcher had all the Heysel Stadium stuff, all this sort of national, international publicity about Britain's football hooligans, and she's going to do something about it. So up comes this idea of an identity card scheme. The guy who was the chairman of Luton Town was a Tory MP, says this is the way, Margaret, this is how we do it, he stamps out the trouble. And she wouldn't listen, not only to people on the opposition side, but there are some football supporters actually in the government too, people who actually go to football regularly and understand. And no, not chairman, people who actually stand on the terraces. But they wouldn't listen to that. And the trouble is that on the whole, the public opinion polls suggested that scheme was popular. Not with those who go to football and understand anything about football, but with the average guy who doesn't, or the average woman who doesn't, and thinks that something's got to be done about... And they've got these weird ideas. Every week there's trouble and there's violence and so on. So she was sucked into trying to do something about the problem. And all she could find to do was an identity card scheme. And everybody said to it won't work.
Is the problem really anything to do with football?
No, it's a social problem, isn't it? And in my view,
I think the football clubs have taken the can back.
Yeah, that's right.
It's an opportunity for some people who want to participate in violence, and football is the easiest opportunity. And I reckon if you stamped it out in soccer, it would emerge in rugby league or ice hockey or somewhere or other. That's going to come.
Eventually, they would get to the bottom of it, won't they? I mean,
well, I hope so.
How many have been taken to court in recent months and got away with it?
But then again, well, there were
some police problems about some of their...
I think the poor old police have been came back for a hell of a lot of things.
Overall, I wouldn't dispute that, but I think the problem was that they infiltrated some of the gangs associated with football, and they do appear to have bent the evidence somewhat. And you know, they got caught out doing it, which is unfortunate. Yeah. And that's why those prosecutions collapsed.
But I was scouting for quite a long while, for over 12 years, I think, with Crystal Palace, after I left Derby. And I used to say to people, when all this on the television about trouble, I said, well, I haven't seen one in nearly 10 years where there's been a trouble at a game I've been to.
Yeah.
You know, and I couldn't believe it.
Well, surely this is part of the problem, though, isn't it? I mean, if you look at the build-up already for the World Cup in this summer, the press are already almost every week. It's going to be every day. They're centering on either trouble taking place in Italy or trouble taking place in other countries in Europe or around the world. They're highlighting particular Dutch incidents. They're sensationalising them. You're going to, when comes Sardinia, is that where the England and Holland are? Come the time when the supporters are starting to travel out there, you'll have 100 more news reporters than you will have sports reporters, all out there going around. I mean, it's like, I mean, an example. I mean, the press are always on the lookout for a good story. And if they can just get the tiniest germ of an idea, then they'll be there. Down at Brixton, there was a riot a couple of weeks ago over the poll tax thing. And it was a farce. I mean, I was down there for the same reason as all the other cameramen and the reporters and everyone else who were down there. You had the police on one side charging at the demonstrator on the other side chucking stones and bottles, and in the middle you had a huge huddle of pressmen, film crews, photographers, reporters, all in there, scrubbing away, taking pictures. And it's like, you know, it's all for the cameras, basically. I mean, you know, this confrontation was built up.
I think television has got a lot to do.
Not just television, but it's, you know, the paper like The Sun is the most widely read paper in inverted commas in the country, and it's, you know, they take one particular incident and they'll blow it out of all proportion.
In this period of bad times when this was supposed to, it was only half a dozen teams who had this type of reporters that were causing this trouble. Work it out on those two hands.
And some of it was booze, wasn't it? I mean,
they were well organised.
A lot of this was professionals.
They're well organised.
Chelsea and the Moss, Millwall,
these are city firm and all that. And they're not poor.
It's a big thing.
They're not poor people either.
They're up there this week. Where they get the money from?
Yeah. John.
We were talking about recently all the stadium.
Order.
I go, Brick Nose, go all over England now watching Charlton. Now Charlton played at Hillsborough about 4 and 5 weeks before that tragedy. Now I would have said that's one of the safest grounds in England. But it turns out to me, if they had been seats behind that goal, where the people standing in front, that disaster would never happen. And also, those railings, which come completely down, besides the perimeter fences, once you were stuck in there, you couldn't move anyway. And at the valley, you could move all the way around the ground. Without any fences or anything, except for the grandstand, as such.
In my opinion, the Hillsborough name was made by those people that left the pub about 10 minutes before the kick-off. The publicans said they were drunk, they cleared him out of beer and everything. And you saw the back end of the trouble they caused. The next day, the publican admitted there was none of that. He didn't say that. Now, who'd been back to the publican and more or less said, right, you either subtract what you said, or you're probably going to get done over. And nothing was ever said. And I always believe that the Liverpool people were to blame for that trouble.
Well, that was an element in it. The police clearly got it wrong. I mean, they made mistakes. And the worst of all was the lack of communication. Nobody knew what was happening.
There were also hold-ups across the Pennines as well, so coaches were very late arriving.
When you saw a diagram of that, and they all made for that one open gate in the middle, and you knew that there were they didn't know because that's not their ground. And you saw the railings there, it was obvious that you were wasn't trying to get a walk in.
No.
But you were trying to get a gallon in for a pint pot.
But in the 1930s, when we were using sort of pieces of paper and so on, maybe you'd understand it. But this is the 1990s. We could communicate immediately. Somebody in dealing with crowd control could have realised the problem, simply radioed in so that an announcement could be made urgently, telling people to ease up, move back, all sorts of possibilities. But nobody was thinking about any of that.
Whenever we case with
the
Charlton's
game
match,
had
so
started,
half a dozen.
and they wanted to get in, and they just made for the difference.
And again, you could have delayed the
Now,
kick-off.
if that lobby's...
Well, I think if they hadn't voted for that case, there'd have been more people outside.
Yes, here's another one. Here's another one for you on the same lines. Now, if that Leppings Lane end had been seated, would the death and that same incident, that same build-up outside had happened, crash happened outside? The police had opened the gates to relieve the crash outside. The crash poured in through, went down that one tunnel, and it had all been seated. Would the death toll have been higher?
Yes.
Would people have been tumbling over the seats, getting trampled on in between the seats?
Andy, you would have had a ticket.
Hold on. You would have had a ticket, right? The game started. Now, the year before, the same semi-final the year before, the police had a cordon away from the ground, a short distance away from the ground, and they were checking tickets, only letting people through with tickets. When that happened, there was no cordon. People were coming up right up to the turnstiles. And so you're getting people going up there without tickets, with tickets, without tickets, a sellout whatever way it happened. Now, having a ticket or not having a ticket doesn't make any difference. You know, but some of the people that are pouring in there, some of them had tickets, some of them didn't have tickets, because they were opportunists trying to get into the game.
I think they actually have a load of them.
Oh yeah,
Well, crowds do.
crowds do. The surge of the crowd.
And the trouble is those in front can't actually communicate what's happening to those behind. So they go on pushing, and then you've got disaster.
Going back 60 years to the question of all-seater stadiums, I mean, what I was getting to about asking people, I mean, there may be lots of people that want to stand, and they should be a part of the ground to stand in. But what else they haven't taken into consideration, not only are they letting you sit down, they're charging you twice as much for it. I mean, they're not saying, right, if you get a government grant, which isn't costing the club X amount of pounds, why did the club want to charge you more money to see the same game you was playing when you stood up?
Because the capacity is
Because the number comes down.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, does it?
Well, it does actually, doesn't it?
We should be asked, I'm talking about anything in Parliament, and never ask people, do they? They should be saying to people, look, do you want 1/3 of the ground, or place to hold 1,000 parts of that?
Yeah, that's right.
They say it's a free country, but they tell you now what you don't want to do.
Well, I think that's right. The difficulty is that if it's decided, and football seems to be going along with this, that for big games anyway, the only safe way is to have all-seater stadia. Then nobody's going to... Well,
I think if they had a referendum of the country, you'd find you get a different result.
I think you would. But, I mean, if you look at the overseas experience, where you've got pretty well entirely all-seater stadium, you don't get trouble. Now, that's not necessarily because it's a seated stadium.
Well,
there may be different styles and all the rest of it.
It's not strictly true, though. I mean, the majority of stadia abroad are not all-seater. The average league club in France is not all-seater.
No, I think about the United States, things like that, where you have massive crowds.
They're spectacle there, don't they? It's not just
It's a different approach, maybe.
Yeah.
Some passion.
They've got their hooligans over there, just the same.
Yeah, they do.
They have their trouble. We don't hear anything about them.
I don't
Right, we've got 5 minutes left before John has to leave.
You want to go off the...
Perhaps the last 5 minutes, obviously, I spoke to you on the phone about this. One of your fellow MPs in your party is the MP for Charlton, for Greenwich, which includes the Valley. She has been, appeared to be fairly opposed to Charlton's return all the way down the line.
Not while she was here, though.
Not while she was here, she was sort of hovering off the fence slightly, wasn't she?
She is rather pretty to sit on.
But what is the local SDP line on the Valley?
Well, we had I mean, just to give the background, Rosie went the wrong way on identity cards to begin with, and we had to sort of gradually work on her until eventually she voted against it, so we had some success on that. I think she was fairly open-minded on the Valley in the early days, and the survey that she did was a genuine attempt to try and find out what local people felt. I think she came down pretty anti on the basis of the commercial development, and the fact that the people immediately around the ground appeared to become more anti towards the end of the campaign. That seems to have influenced her. And although she's never said, I am opposed to Charlton coming back, my own impression is that she is less than keen on the idea, put it that way. What's the SDP line? We had a discussion, a very well-attended meeting at the end of February, and we had a motion moved by a guy called Rod Wright, who's a very strong Charlton supporter, which urged that the SDP welcome Charlton's return to the Valley and welcomed the proposed commercial development, the banqueting suite, the office block, and so on. There was an amendment moved simply to delete the details of the commercial development, but to say that we recognised there had to be commercial development. So we weren't endorsing absolutely that commercial development, but it had to be some. And that was carried on a vote of about 2-1. Rosie, I must say, voted against it, which surprised me. So the position of the SDP is we are strongly in favour of Charlton returning, and we recognise that there has to be commercial development on the Valley to ensure Charlton's return. We aren't necessarily endorsing exactly everything that Charlton has put out. So that's our current position.
I mean, one of the questions that's continually been put to Councillor Simon Ullman, or to Sandra Hunt, or to Fritz Henning when he was here. What is acceptable commercial development for the Valley site?
Well, I mean, I think you've got to look at everything on its merits. I don't know particularly what the objection was about the office block. The banqueting suite, I think that anything which generates income and a community feel is acceptable. It may be that the club was unfortunate in calling it a banqueting suite. Perhaps that didn't actually recognise
Also, I mean, Fritz Henning used the term, as far as the office development goes, speculative office development. And the speculative term is very, very unfortunate. And he explained why he called it speculative, because they had no tenants. But to the general public, the person who just reads it, speculative office development, is a horrible ring to it.
Oh, yes, a speculator, something.
But when I said to him, he said that if they allow Charlton to do that on the Valley, which is designated as a sports ground or something worse, it will open the door for every sports ground to do the same. And I said, I don't consider the Valley a sports ground. It is a place of employment.
It's a professional
and
ground.
And he wouldn't agree with the fact that it was a place of employment.
No.
But the housing development, I mean, I said to you, I had a discussion with Langs about 18 months ago, and they said they reckoned if they built the houses that they wanted to build on the car park, they could probably get back the £2 million they'd put in. And I said, well, will you really sell houses up against the wall of a football club? We've sold up against the wall of gasworks, he said. No problem at all. We build them, we'll sell them. And I mean, housing development, you can't object to it. It may add to some of the problems if you've got housing right up against the ground. But Lanes think that they can do it.
I also said to him, did you see the article about the two old ladies holding out against Liverpool? Now, they wasn't only going to take the houses on the other side of the road to extend their stand, but they were going to take the roadway as well. Now, the Liverpool Council have given their blessing once they get those two old dears out. They were the only two in the middle of a row of houses that were holding them up.
But Liverpool, I mean, and they think immediately Liverpool Football Club.
But they've made it.
Yes, of course.
Yes, but why can't we see
but
that
that's,
if they give some blessing here, we might have Charlton?
But I agree, but that's what we haven't, that penny hasn't dropped yet.
There's quite a few groups in Charlton that might easily be.
Well,
really political.
but
I mean, if the players make up their mind, they go on they can't find out, can they?
Well, I mean, the club's appealing, as I understand it, to the Secretary of State. Now, I've made some inquiries with the officials, and they think that because the Secretary of State approved their plan, their borough plan, he won't approve any alteration to it. But I mean, the $64,000 question is the one you've already posed. Why did they, when they were saying to Charlton, we want you back at the Valley, approve a plan which made it impossible for Charlton to come back to the Valley?
And also,
I do appear to have to say that the housing benefits on that plan as well, which is incredible, given that Dave Fixon was on the platform in March saying, yes, come back. I mean, he knew then that they were going to put in a housing development. In April, plan was approved. That is what staggers benefits.
Rick.
Well, I don't understand that.
I asked Fritz that, and that's what he said.
Rick, if you remember what he kept saying was, he kept blaming the Charlton because they'd asked to come back and they said yes. And then they saw another plan which had something on it that wasn't on the original. Then they saw another plan, they said which there was something on which wasn't on the housing.
The housing never changed.
No, the housing didn't. But
They knew about the housing and they allowed that borough plan to go forward with that area behind the stand zoned as open space. And so then they're now saying that you can't build the houses, and that's why the housing has been withdrawn subsequently. The application never came to us. That is the sticking point of why we're very suspicious of the council.
And also with the Victoria Deepwater Terminal, which the council also seems to have some kind of preference for Charlton. That's designated as a working wharf, and the land around is as industrial land, and they would have to change the borough plan in order to allow Charlton to go there as well.
This idea that the borough says to the club, go somewhere else. If you went somewhere else, you've got to acquire the land. Now, where's the money coming from?
Where's the land coming from in the Borough?
And if you leave the valley behind, I mean, how do you get compensated for that?
It can't be built on.
Who bought the Metro Gas Forge down there? We heard that was
Isn't that all in the British United Developers? Channel? I mean, all that peninsula is being done by British United Developers, which is a sort of consortium of the big builders and the big property developers.
All those other places, that's what Charlton back to the valley, doesn't it?
Well, that's right, but I mean, you could have these airy-fairy ideas of building a new stadium somewhere else, but if you don't own the land, nobody's going to give you the land, it's just pipe dreams. And you have got the valley, something which belongs to the club. That's the easiest place to come back to.
We've had all this talk, it's only suggestions of what else we can do. I mean, we've had you, we've had Rosie, we've had the planning man. Can anyone tell us what other steps we may take? I mean, we've done everything we can.
I'm simply not au fait with the current state of private negotiations, which I understood were going on between the council and the club. I don't know whether Rick knows anything about that.
The official line is to construct privately with the club or during the council. The people like Simon Holman are going around the Lake Point meetings down there in the Rexons and down there in the Mercury, and it's all very there's a great deal of distrust and hostility on both sides.
Well, if the appeal is persisted with, and as I understand it, the club has actually fallen.
They're holding it back for 3 weeks until while the negotiations are.
Yeah. Well, if the appeal goes in, that's an appeal to the Secretary of State for the Environment. And given the importance and the sensitivity, I have no doubt that he would order a public inquiry where everybody's entitled to come along and say their piece. And if that happens, and that's the time when you really do have to organise the maximum possible public support for the club coming back. Because an inspector will hear it. It's rather like inquiry into major road schemes and things like that. It's public, everybody has a chance of giving evidence, saying their bit, and the inspector weighs it all up and goes off with the recommendation to the Secretary of State, who may accept it or reject it. But it's a public thing, and you do have an opportunity of really putting some pressure on.
Time, though, doesn't it? That'd be another year or so.
It would be something between 6 months and a year before you actually had the public inquiry, and then that could go on quite some time. And then obviously the inspector has to weigh it all up and make a recommendation to the Secretary of State. But they do take a long time. On the other hand, the issues here are fairly simple and straightforward, I would have thought. But the important thing, if we get to a public inquiry, is to demonstrate there is massive public support for Charlton returning.
But that doesn't help very much when 100 people like us voice an opinion and an MP goes up there and puts an opinion of 200 people that...
MPs don't have any more weight in public inquiries than anybody else.
There's 200 members of my constituency are against it. I think it's wrong with one person that probably might not be there next year.
But as far as the public inquiry is concerned, an MP speaks for him or herself. He or she may say, and I have the support of X number of people. Unless you've got a petition signed or a piece of paper signed, then that doesn't carry any weight with an inspector. You may claim that, but he wants to see. And very often my constituents come to me and say, we want your support on a public inquiry about something or other. And I say, well, make sure I've got a list of all the names of you who are taking that position, so I can actually put that into the inquiry and show it's not just me. There's a lot of people behind me. An inspector wouldn't give any greater weight to an MP than anybody else.
But in an appeal, would the flag help Charlton that report?
I would have thought if Cheltenham making their case, they would undoubtedly make the case that this is a forward-looking stadium, a stadium for the next century, absolutely on the lines of what Taylor has recommended.
Immediately following it.
And this is what the government wants to see, and that would be a very strong bargaining counter, I would have thought, with a Secretary of State for the Environment who is responsible after all for this, because sport comes under the Department of the
What
Environment.
happens then if the government changes its tune on the next election?
Well, you're into the crystal ball business now, but I don't see the election coming any quicker than it has to. It could be delayed until June 1992. By which time I'd have thought if the club goes in with an appeal, it'll be over long before that.
No, that's what I'm thinking of. You know, would another colour favour the colour that's down the town hall? And
not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean,
it's only a question.
Sure, but it shouldn't. And you don't find on planning inquiries there is some evidence that this government, for example, seems to be very much keener on out-of-town shopping centres and things like that than its predecessors. But I would have thought, since the government has laid down this policy, this is what it wants to see: brand new football stadia geared to the Taylor recommendations. Charlton would argue that's exactly what we want to build at the Valley. Nowhere else can we go. The choice for us is either having a modern stadium at the Valley or trying to limp along with the Valley. I can't believe they can stay at Selhurst Park.
No, not at all. That's why I think they went back to the Valley and waited for the public inquiry to catch up with them, but play football there now.
Well,
the other half playing.
Yes, but it's going to be expensive putting up something temporary.
And
so going to fall down.
And so it is over at Selhurst Park.
Well, what was the cost of that? When they first went to Selhurst Park, I never thought the figures added up then, because the cost of repairing the terraces, we were told, seemed to be about the same as what they were buying into to Selhurst Park.
I think there's a lot to do with
Well, but there was also a lot of argument about what Glixton had and had not made available, and he always said that was totally untrue. That he hadn't sort of, made the turnstiles all
They
quick.
showed you a diagram of the ground and shaded in the area that Glixton wanted, which was the old car park, and bringing it right up to the ground, the grandstand, which was making it impossible. That is why they said they had to
he always said, I had some contact with him through that difficult period when they were negotiating. I mean, he, as I understood his position, was very angry that he'd sold out to this guy, what was his name, Hullier. Under public pressure, he'd held out to Hullier, and Hullier had not, in fact, I better be careful because there are laws of libel. But the money seemed to be a bit missing as far as Hullier's payments were concerned. And he went bankrupt, I think, didn't he? Subsequently. And Grigson felt a bit bitter about all that, I think.
You know, that coloured chief come over with about £10,000.
Oh, yes, right, yeah.
He thought he only had about 3 shovels worth of money. And he's talking to a bloke with skin.
The Zulu.
Anyway, it's 2:10.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank John Cartwright MP very much for coming downstairs. Nice to see some of my childhood heroes. Although I have to confess that Sam Bartram was my childhood hero. That's why I was interested in your story, because I used to play golf for my school team, and I was a disastrous goalkeeper. Mainly, I was told, because I modelled myself on Sam Bartram, I would never catch the ball. I'd always punch it, and that was always in the
You know what
state.
Mr. Cedar was as a Sam? He said, I think you would see an optician. He was a
Do you remember? It was, I think, a league game. Must have been about 1946 when he took a penalty and hit the bar. It's Birmingham City. Hit the crossbar, and he had to race all the way back.
I was back there for him.
He ran from the halfway line, full out.
Yeah.
He hit it, and it hit the crossbar. Went right way past back up to the halfway line. It's him in the 18-yard box.
He was never dull, the Sam Bartram, was he? All right. Okay, thanks very much. Nice to see you all.
Thanks for coming down. Bye-bye.
Pre-Derby County game, which was played in the home dressing room at Charlton before we left the Valley I was assistant trainer, Jimmy Trotter was the trainer, Jimmy C the manager, the ladder was playing, and Jimmy C's telling them what to do. He's saying, no, Albert, when Charlie Brown's got the ball, he's got this, you do this, and yet he went and told 8 players, and there's only one bloke stood up. You say, I'm never going to get the fucking ball. And that's the truth. Listen, I'm at the door, hole in the door, so nobody comes in the dressing room at all, and I'm going, fucking murder, no idea, no tango, no idea in alley. He had no idea what it was all about. Charlton was never going to have the ball at all, and not a bloody soul only out of here. What are we going to have the ball?
I think we were about the best team in the country.
Yes.
38. We had a bloody good side. And his instructions before the game, this was in the dressing room at Wembley, was that Bert Turner and Bert Johnson were to stay back, not come up with me, to stay back and watch Dr. Dick come. 2 great players.
Yeah.
2 good
But I
players,
think
yes.
Don Welsh and I were as good, if at that time, not better. And I said, well, what about them brothers chasing me? I said, instead of us chasing them. And that lost us the cup.
That no day,
That did.
no day.
Every time I got the ball in the centre of the field, I didn't have to beat anybody if I'd got Bert Johnson and Bert Turner doing the job.
As a
They'd come up and we'd be on the attack. But instead of that, they were doing all the bloody attacking.
Yeah. That's a W formation, wasn't it?
Yeah. But the fortnight before that, you beat them 2-1, didn't you?
Yeah. Down the valley before the winning goal.
Yeah.
Charlie got the goal. He fell over, he put it in. I remember that.
Took it in with his bootlegs.
From Bert Johnston, and I think I must have beaten 5, I should think about, in about 10 yards. And he was on the goal line. And that come
Yes, the goalkeeper for a lot
me twice already. I know.
It was, yeah.
Because that was the time that these Derby supporters, we had a bet with them.
Oh, yeah.
And the bloke slid off with the money. We got him though.
Who's only got
We caught them. Oh, good.
I said, that is it.
Yeah. But he was,
I remember that one.
he was a good manager in some ways.
Yeah.
You never saw him, you see. That was very, very good. But when he was there, he was bloody
Do you know what, Albert? The only one that said a good word to say.
Yeah.
From all the players that have come here.
Oh, no.
I've never said it.
Look at this.
I've never had a good word for it.
Look at all the success he had.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to take that into consideration. He never done anything for me. Quite honestly, he never taught me nothing.
No, that's true.
Nothing at all.
That's correct.
In fact, I don't think he would have had me in his team.
But the thing is, though, that team of the 30s, when you think about it, I mean, who was the most costliest player? Welsh, wasn't it?
Don Welsh.
Don't worry.
Yes.
3,500, wasn't it?
3,300.
That's right.
George Chapman came £50,000.
Yeah.
Must have Jimmy Oaks played.
Eh?
Jimmy Oaks.
Jimmy, he was going on 800 to 1,000.
Yeah.
Jimmy Oaks,
750.
he come from Port Vale. He played for Port Vale in the
Best
cup.
boy Charlton ever
And
had.
then he come
Good fella.
to Charlton.
Everybody got sent off.
Jack
back to
Oaks.
Worrell.
Jack Oaks
Yeah.
cost 800 or 1,000 pounds.
He got money. It was okay afterwards. At the,
Jack Oaks sent it off.
Yeah, he got away with it.
When he came, he come from Aldershot at the time. But they went up from third division to the first division for about 11,000 or 10,500.
Yeah.
The cheapest bloody giveaway fish in the world.
But that made him a good manager.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got to face
Well,
it.
nothing really, wasn't it? I mean, you take Newcastle when they come down there, or Sunderland was it, I'm not sure, and all the players, thousands of pounds, goalkeeping everybody, and Charlton wept them, 5-something, beginning of the season.
I think the funniest thing that ever happened now was Charlie Purse. we drew Charlie Firth played inside forward for us.
Oh,
We
yeah,
came from
Firth.
Newcastle.
Yeah.
And we were playing Newcastle, I think in the 6th round at home, you see. And then he comes with the black and white rosette, the black and white Mustang, when he's playing inside forward against Newcastle. An old doctor on me said, "What have you got?" He said, "Newcastle for the bloody cup, you know." Yeah. He's only playing inside right against them. We won 2-1, I think they did.
Spennymoor one. Spennymoor.
Spennymoor,
Yeah, we won 2-1 and had a penalty, didn't we, right near the end. And the fellow missed it. I didn't have enough strength to get the Sam, I think, the ball. Mitchell, I think, was playing outside there. Took it, and who's the manager there? He sacked him as he came off. No,
Joe, the old winger. Joe Harvey.
the other side.
Oh,
Newcastle, Joe Harvey, I was in the army,
no.
Joe, he's sergeant on
You mean the chairman?
Yeah, he sacked him as he come off.
Seymour.
As he come off, he got this fellow Mitchell, and he said, "You can bugger off," he said, "because we've finished our club," and he went to Aberdeen, I think, the week after. Yeah, he missed the penalty of the last couple of minutes.
Getting back to Jimmy C, I'd have still been living in Charlton, I think, for Dan for Jimmy C.
Yes, that's it.
He was the only snag in the oil, not for me.
That's so.
Yeah, he'd tell you.
When did you stay at
I
that
went
time?
to
Up Revell Marsh, was it? You up there?
No,
No, he was-
Sangwell Road. that's
Zangwill
what I
Road, further
Oh,
up.
yeah.
did. Yeah, up towards the hospital.
Yeah, before you got to the brook, it was there before him, you see.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I had one that way and one that way, you see.
Yeah.
If my old left foot was all right, I could
Yeah.
dance
Yeah, that's right.
But they were.
I remember the occasion when they...
And I'll tell you a little tale, and this is perfectly true. When I was leaving Charlton, I was in the boardroom with two Glixtons, old Lowe and Law,
Oh, yeah.
all the directors, and they said, "Are you sound financially?" I said, "Yes, thank you." Do you want this? Do you want that? No. Montgomery was sitting this side and Jimmy C was sitting that side. And they said, "Well, what is the trouble?" I said, "It's him." And I was smoking cigarettes, man. I said, "Yeah, but Albert," he said, "we get on all right." I said, "You get on all right, but I don't." I said, "You and I have never seen eye to eye from the day that I arrived here." "Oh, I don't know about that," he said. And I got on about playing in the reserves, a regular in the reserves. And yet, both got hurt. In went Lancelot.
Yeah.
Somebody
He
else.
went in for
He
2
come
games,
out.
yeah.
In went blocked. The buggers weren't playing in the reserves. And I thought, well, I don't know. This is all cock. And old Jimmy Oakes, I used to strip next to him. He gave me a good bread basket. He used to call me to his dog.
He's
Oh, yeah.
strong, he's a bloody bastard.
Sorry. Well, anyway, he said to me now, I think we played Bristol City or something, and he said to me in the dressing room, "If you don't go in their office now and tell Mr. C that if you're not in the first team on Saturday, you're going home." I said, "Oh, can you do that?" I said, "No." I said, "That's not me at all." He said, "You go in there and you'll be in on Saturday." So eventually I made my mind up I'd go in when I went in. And I told him precisely. He said, "Why, what's the matter?" I said, "Because," I said, "I'm fed up. I've had enough." So anyway, he said, "Leave it with me and I'll see." So we had a practice on the Tuesday. I think we played Leighton Orient reserves on the Monday. I went down and had a game in the practice match Tuesday. They played at Portsmouth on Thursday, and it was pissing down the rain, heavy. That's bloody right. And I played those 3 matches, and then on the way back he said to me, "You'll be in the team on Saturday." That's true, whether it was trying to wear me out.
I'll tell you that, you know...
I haven't finished yet, Charlie. I said, in the office, I said, Block's been in, Lancelot, and there was another one, I don't know who it was. I said, they've been in, and they've all come out. I said, I'll tell you one thing, when I go in, I will come out. And I never did.
I think Bert Tam played one game inside forward.
What about Eric Lancelot? Was he
He was in for one or two games. He was a great player, that boy. The best Tuesday morning player you ever had. But on the football match on the Saturday, in First Division, Eric, honest, he wasn't the same bloke. He used to piddle all round them on a Tuesday. The first team defence, playing the forward line. You know, and he Vicky Burr. And he used to piddle through the team on a Tuesday, on a Saturday. He couldn't run from here to that wall. Half a crown, was it? He's gone there. Nerves or something. Just cut him off like that.
First cup final, we went 3-6.
3-6.
Yeah. And besides that, I come home with 3 bob better on because I had elder brother, and as we were going, he said, "Here, first as your entrance fee," which was 3 bob. But I had to get him for nothing, and without a word of a lie, I got a seat about 6 rows behind the royal family. That's true.
Very nice.
Very
nice. Behind the royal.
The only time I ever went.
Yeah.
The only time I ever went.
I'll tell you another little tale about Jimmy C. The semi-final of the Cup at Villa Park, Bolton Wanderers.
Oh, yeah.
We all got on the train, and because they used to have boiled chicken and that, you know, because I didn't want any of that whole rubbish. So I was sitting there, and Jimmy C was sitting there next to Jimmy Trotter, and waiter come along. My missus was with me, Don Rush and his missus with the other side, and he says, you know, the old menu. So I says, I just have a word into the order backs. She said, all right, so very good, sir. So he puts us here, the Bassett was there. And I said, sure. And Jimmy C, I see him go for Trotter. So I knew what was going down. And my missus was like to see it, she was Jake. So Jimmy come across and said, don't do you know? He said, don't blow your top. He says, I've just come across to tell you you're all right. So back he goes. So I thought to myself, well, another. I did. Had another bass. Get off the train. And as we're walking up the New Street station, my missus opened my arm. He came up and he said, what's your fucking game? Yeah, I nearly chinned him. Oh, I did. Yes. And you don't know this, when we got to Villa Park, I went up in the stand. Sammy come up there and John Oates, and Don Welch. I wasn't ready for that. I said, if you come and apologise to my wife, I'll play. Otherwise I won't. I said, and I should never kick another ball. The Charlton's never.
I read that somewhere.
And anyway, he came up about 10 minutes before the kick-off.
That's what he did then.
And he apologised, and I went down. And the cheer in our dressing room when I walked in was the biggest bloody cheer I've ever seen. Honestly, the atmosphere was like a morgue. Yeah. You know, all these things there.
Yeah, that's right. That's what makes it nice.
There's so many things like that happening to me with Jimmy C. It's unbelievable. It is.
Can I ask you this? It always seemed to me that Charlton went downhill once Trotter took over as manager.
Oh, she's never have gone manager. The best trainer in the country.
Trainer.
God, blimey. They give him £2 extra, the mincy baskets. And they made Jack Shreve trainer.
He was
And he forgot to pay me for the bloody 38 quid with the books on
They held a meeting in Woolwich Town Hall to try to get more crowd. Run by Jimmy Trotter and his crowd. And I always reckon it went downhill from there.
But he was a great trainer.
Oh yes.
I attributed a lot of the success to Charlton through the years.
There's two Jimmys, but there was only one good man.
There was only one man.
Not as a manager.
I was there.
If anybody had any grievances at all, they didn't go to Jimmy Seed. They went to Jimmy
Trotter.
But he was Jimmy Seed's right-hand man. He was on Jimmy Seed's side all the time.
He was England's.
I knew Jimmy Trotter before I didn't know him before he came to Charlton, but the trainer when I went there was a fella called Pop Hopkins.
Hopkins, yeah.
And he said to me, I'm playing outside left, inside left and centre forward, and he said, you doing this and doing that, sending the pound home, 30 bob digs, a shilling union. He said, you're getting 20 bob a week. He said, go in and ask him for more money, you deserve it.
But was it...
He got the bloody sack of
Rainer.
Vincott's Trotter. But he was a great fella, Trotter.
Yeah.
Rainer? Was it Rainer who said part of the office?
Rainer, I don't remember.
Way back.
He goes back about 20 years before he started match.
Right.
He's only a young age,
He don't look old, does he? Oh, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
I should have had these on all the time.
Yeah.
3 bins, you see?
Jimmy Seed was that tight. I got demobbed in the army, from the army with Joe Mercer, Group 21 in November. And I went down the ground, because I was down there more or less every day when I was stationed in London, every night training. And he said, I want you to be assistant trainer. I said, oh, because I couldn't play. The doctor said I'd never play again, all that business. So next thing, I'm assistant trainer. Now my contract reads, when war broke out, £8. That's what I got a week, no bonus at all. Five grand a week. All right? When I got injured for good in 1943, I had my leg done there, and it was a half cock, just like that. I couldn't do any more. It was Jimmy Trotter done it up beautiful. All right, they're going to take me home. Jimmy Trotter said, you can't walk on that. I got my wife with me as well in the dressing room. So next thing is, we got to wait for Italy Jimmy to come, and his new sidekick, Bill Moss. All right? He comes out. I'm sitting, my wife's that side, I'm sitting this side. In gets Bill Moss in the driver's seat, and Chummy comes in here. He gets back and he goes, and the seat comes back. Oh, honest to God, this is straight. And he says, they say you'll never play again. We'll buy your house off me. I said, you haven't got enough bloody money to buy my house if you worked all your life. Honest basket. He never done anyone a favour.
We all had money.
That was so realistic, I felt that.
Yeah, they half hurt, didn't it?
That's what they call actual replay, wasn't it?
Yeah, no.
What about old Derry Duff, when they used to come
Oh, his shoulder.
come on and
Yeah.
we all felt that.
Well, I played with a bad ankle for about 3 months, and they used to inject it with Novocaine.
Yeah.
Sorry, and I couldn't get the bloody shoe on after the match. That's true.
Well, I had my cartilage out in July, and I was fit again to play in, I think you would have passed yourself, about 3 weeks?
3 weeks,
4
I
months.
just...
And I just misspeaking to you, I was 4 weeks and 2 days.
Yeah.
And I played, but every time I played, my knee came up like a big balloon. And I had to go home, I had to get a taxi to take me home, stay in bed till Monday, hobble down the ground. Jimmy'd work on it all the week. Friday I'd have a run around, playing Saturday, after give me an injection an hour before the kick-off, out on the field again, after the match, up again, home again in the 2 days, and that went on for 4 months. I lost 1.5 stone in weight. He wouldn't drop me out the side.
He was always fat though, wasn't he?
Fat as I now, but...
Yeah, fatter than what you are now,
I was 12 stone. 12 stone 6.
Get on with the other brand, Tommy.
Hey?
I'll tell you a tale about Tommy Brown.
You can tell me.
I'll tell you a tale about Tommy.
I was, the RAF were playing a Hearts and Hips Select in Scotland. He weren't very old, this was the beginning of the war.
His youngest,
And he was the youngest kid to play for Scotland.
He was, Tommy
And
Brown.
anyway, we were staying at the hotel, and I was digging Billy Shankly with my mate in the the room, and this Tommy Brown came there with a big crumpet.
No.
That was be fair, he only had one bit. Well, anyway, he got talking to Billy Shankly, and apparently Billy Shankly gave him permission to go to our bedroom for some reason or other. It wasn't to take a bit of crumpet, but anyway, he gave him permission, and he somehow got this girl out there, and somebody squealed, and they turfed him out the hotel. And Billy Shankly, if he'd have gone, he'd have killed him. He would. And that was him. And that the sort of lad that he was.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant bloody footballer.
Trotter had a
He was a beautiful footballer, but
we had a cup match.
I never knew where he was.
Cup match on the Saturday. On the Friday morning, we had a telegram to Tommy Brown.
In France, wasn't it?
So Jimmy thought, oh, this must be urgent. I'll open it, see. And they meet you tonight at 10 o'clock at this what's the name hotel in London, Sylvia. And this is true. He'd come in the morning and he'd take your same hand and put them down, and there'd be all lipstick all round his belly.
I was trained at Revell when Benny Fenton was there and Tommy Brown. And Tommy was a good player, but he had a very dodgy leg. Honest to God. Now, we go away. Benny Fenton wasn't in the side that time. We went away to play, and we got to Sheffield with Millwall. I was the trainer. And then get the boys to bed at 10:30, George. All right, I'll go down to 10:30. And they'd all go up. All right, not on the, they go up one by one. Enjoy that. So next thing is, I got to go and see it there in their rooms about 11:15. Go in his room, all right. Two in the room. Everything's all right. We get the Brownie's room and I'm going bang, bang. I'm kicking the bloody door now. Come on, open up. Open up that bloody door. Oh, I jeered him up. And he come out, honest to God. There's lipstick on his top collar, and he says, God blimey, he said, I've had the daughter, now I'm having the mother. He said, you disturb me. Andy's with the daughter, the Scottish centre forward's with the daughter. I'm not kidding you, but when he got transferred to Charlton, I was Dartford then, and I went down to watch him play. And he saw me, and he said, George, come here. He said, what do you think of this bloody Jimmy said? I said, he don't know shit to play. Regardless of the game, how it's played. I said, he's the luckiest bloke in the world. And he says, he wants me to do this, he wants me to do that. I said, he do. No danger. I said, that's what he wants, but he's got no idea. I said, play your own bloody game. Now, when I bought Fenton before him for 3,000 quid, and Benny Fenton, I'm not kidding you, I made him a bloody good player. I did, alone. He wouldn't have played higher than only rubbish football. Honest. I used to have that, so I could get over to him and wing off, and I used to go to him. We come to a Christmas, and we played Chesterfield at Millwall. We won. We went up to Chesterfield the next day. We ended up with 10 men, and we won. What a terrible thing. Now we've got to go from there to Newcastle. This is Christmas. Go to Newcastle, right? And I said to Jack Cotton, I said, you want to wing off? I said, Fenton can't play. I said, the bloke I told you should never have come, George so-and-so. He said he'd play for me. I said, well, I told you he wasn't bloody fit. I said, you took him. We bring Freddie Ford, who's got 2 dodgy knees. I said, I've strapped him up, anything I've got to do here. I said, the poor bugger can't walk now. I said, get in touch with the ground, this is straight. And I said, send for Fenton. He said, I said, send for Fenton. And I'll meet him on the 6 o'clock train what arrives from London in the morning. And I'm there. Train comes in, and Benny comes up the platform and he's going, no, you want to sing for me? He's got a brown bag, he's got his boots in it. You know, no, he said, what do you want to sing for me for? I said, look, I've got 2 bloody wing halves. I said, one can't get out of bed, and the other one's got to be bloody out and downstairs. So I said, you're playing this afternoon against Newcastle. So listen, I said, you're playing against the mug. And who do you think it was? Thank you very much. So I said, Benny, I said, if you can't touch him, you're out of position. Understand? Now I'm on that bloody seat and I'm going, get near her, you coward son, get near her. And he's going, and this fella, he started to play football, Fenton. You know what I mean? And we ended up, we beat them 2-0, didn't we?
Well done, George.
We go to a pub, right opposite the Oxford Galleries in Newcastle. We get there in this pub, and we had $1, we had a 5-bob whip, and the drinks were and I'd get the drinks. But halfway through, I went over the road to Oxford Galleries dance place. You wouldn't, not allowed after 10 o'clock. I went in, I told the manager who I was. I said, I got the team across the road. I said, but we've only arrived in this place the last half hour. I said, can my boys come in? Please. He said, you can come in for nothing. But be here at 5 to 10. So, all right, I got it together about 9:45, get by the hotel, going to go down the steps, and a little drunk comes up. Come up like this. You do. I said, come on, Johnny, get out the way, son, get out the way. And he said, I want to see Fenton. Yeah, he's like this. I said, what do you want to see him for? He said, I want to see him. I want to see him. I said, if you touch him, I'll break your bloody neck. So anyhow, Benny, come here. And he went, honest, he went like this, the bloke. Shake my hand. You're the best player I ever bloody seen. He said, Shackleton never that. He said, he's a great player, but he never got a kid. You have to have a quid in Penny's hand. I said, you can buy the bleeding beer next time. And that's straight.
Charlie,
and the chairman said, you're here for life.
Next door,
At Millwall, Australia.
stories you told you and now told about Tommy Brown.
Yeah.
No wonder he could bring a bloody eyeball down with his foot.
He used to swing it round.
He had a yard and a half of sausage. I tell you.
I was just telling you, in Paris, we went to Paris, and one of these, let's say, clubs you go in and see, you know, and so this we were trying to get somebody the girls, you know, 2 girls, and won an exhibition with 2 of them, you know. Anyway, so we volunteered, you know, and Christ, she was going to gam it. See? Well, this girl, true story, this. And he's lying there, and she couldn't get in her mouth. She couldn't. True.
Honest.
Stick this out. I don't think like it.
He had the biggest chopper you've ever seen in your life.
So yeah, he laid on the floor, and this girl sat on it. And she sat there, just laid her back there. I can see it now, you know. Like,
And her ears went straight. We've got a cup match at Millwall, and the players got to be sorted. Want all the players there this time. Right, we're all going up to see me and my girl or something, little Upinall Lane, all in going in free. We're going to have some of that Millwall. Up we go. Get a bus, what we go and see him. Coming out of there, we get in the bus. He's missing. Brown is missing. We're coming back to, well, towards the ground. We're all going on. And that's bloody funny. He got to the ground, and I said, "Where's Tommy Brown?"
He said, don't tell me he's not with it. I said, I told you in the bus he's not here. I said, no, he's telling me now. I said, I could have got out and gone round a few hotels looking for him. I had to go back up to bloody London and go in hotels. I'm not kidding you. I went in this one. I said I told the mobile boss, I said, look, I said, I'm after a fella. His name is Brown, a tall Scots lad. No hat, no hat. I said, he can, he's got a bit of smother on him, a bit of smotter. And he said, well, nothing there. The next hotel I had no luck. A third hotel, the fella said, yeah, I think he's here. I think he's here. So anyhow, I go along there, and I couldn't get in the bloody room. This fella's got the key, and they got the key the other side. He can't get it in. That other fella. And I said, oh, balls to him. I'm going to catch the last train from Charing Cross. I'm off. And I got the last train to Blackheath. The ground the next morning. Right, players got to be in by 12 o'clock, because we can have a bit of a chat. I'm not kidding you. This is midday, and all of a sudden, Tommy Brown back? I said, no, I'd come home. I said, I caught the last train from Charing Cross. I said, he was in the hotel, but he had the key in the door, and the detective couldn't get me in that bloody door because he couldn't get the key in.
Was in the other
I said to him, yeah, next thing is, on that score, Jack Cox says, and he's not in? I said, no. He said, when he comes in, send him up to me. And he went out, up the stairs at Millwall. He went upstairs, and at 12:30, he comes back. What the effing hell have you been? What's your flipping game? You hadn't been me running all the way up, back from bloody New Cross. I said, right, the Charing Cross, looking in hotels for you. He said, I said, look, you better go upstairs. The boss said to me, send you upstairs. Right away. He come down. After about 20 minutes, he come down. Come down, and I'm waiting for him. I said, well, I don't think he's going to play him, you see. So I said, well, what did he do, fine you? He said, no, you're bloody too good for me. Mr. bloody God, that's the God's truth. And he was a great player, but he had a bigger chopper than anyone. And that's the God's truth. Brownie, but he didn't think a whisper of it, you see. Didn't have a clue how the player could play.
Yeah. They think he's still playing for us, eh? Round the valley there.
I wonder if there's any kids about 25 who wouldn't get a Scottish accent.
Yes. He'd have been a milkman. Oh, he'd have been dead by the time he was 20. Bring that in. Anyway, 3 o'clock.
Right now, Mr. Sir. Good on, sir.
Drinks on, Bert?
Yes.
Yes, oh yes.
Drinks on. Where do we go?
Did you play with Revell?
Pardon? Did you play with Revell? No. Oh no, he was here.
Still holds a tough record of the season.
Yeah, he took over after Cyril Smith.
Cyril Pearce.
Pierce, yeah.
When did he last know, didn't he, Charles?
No, well, he was here. He finished when he came. He played for Newcastle, didn't he? He played for Newcastle in the cup the season before.
He was a great player, he knew where to go.
That was all, he scored goals. Oh, yes. But he came
about the same time as Stan Wright.
Yes. He played in the reserves along with me prior. Very good centre forward. Yes.
Would you mind having a little chat with Rick for something close to the valley? Would you mind having staying behind for a little while, a few minutes after, just have a little chat with Rick?
Yes.
For Voice of the Valley, something doing?
They're open all day today.
Are they?
Yeah, they're men that were
About 40 years.
Now, we you stop. What was the RAJ?
What's your RAJ? What's your first name?
R.A.J. Brown.
Robert Albert John.
Why do you guys call you Albert?
Because I had an elder brother whose name was Henry, and everybody in the neighbourhood called him Bobby, after my father.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So that when I came along, they couldn't call me Bobby or Robert, could they? And they called me Albert. Yes, yes. Now you know.
Wanted to play halfback, I think. We only knew him as Sailor.
That's all, yeah.
Johnny Jack. You know what any of these? Mary Jane's birth. When you finished the season, was it Friday? She's full goals.
No, I only done that once. Yeah. Walking back, I walked from Yarmouth to London. To sign on. No, that was wrong. But at the end of the season that I did sign on, when I went back home, I walked back.